先にあなたは聞いてください。
Who are all these
何
people
度
from?
も押して、
Who are all these
玄
people
関を叩い
from?
て、あなたの名前を呼んで、私の名前を言って、あなたは何でも返事もしてくれなかったから立ち入ったんです。
So can you please tell me? I'm not going to... please wait.
You know, I've covered a lot of companies. I've covered a lot of Machiavellian companies where, you know, people play rough. I don't think I've ever seen anything on the scale of Nissan.
He is making you, but you're up for this side. I mean, it's corrupt. The system is...
One of the most dramatic elements was Ravinder Passi's home being raided by court officials in Yokohama.
You scared my wife. You scared my children. I worked in Nissan for 16 years.
So Rav Passi's journey into the darkest recesses of the Japanese corporate world started when he was the general counsel, the highest corporate lawyer position in the company.
In the past few minutes, Nissan has revealed that its chairman has been arrested after allegations of serious misconduct.
He was tasked with investigating Carlos Ghosn. And he was told, conduct an internal investigation and get to the heart of the matter. And then along the way, he started to notice serious conflicts of interest.
He is one of the few people who knows an extreme amount of detail regarding the alleged crimes by Carlos Ghosn. And he's now ready to tell his own story on the record about some of the events that happened.
My name is Ravinder Passi. I'm the former Global General Counsel of Nissan Motor Co. Limited. And you could say, yes, I had a front row seat in terms of what was going on.
When Carlos Ghosn saved Nissan years ago, he was depicted in Japanese comic books as this hero, and now maybe we'll see comic books where he's the villain.
In corporate Japan, Nissan was quite an unusual company. It was led for 2 decades by a non-Japanese executive.
Well, Carlos Ghosn was a hero in the Japanese business world. If you had a global business celebrity in Japan and worldwide, it was definitely Carlos Ghosn.
In a country with few foreigners at the top, he stood out. But over the years, he saved Nissan from bankruptcy, allied with Renault and Mitsubishi, and turned the alliance into one of the most competitive in the world.
Yet as the years went on, you know, I think his ambitions changed a little bit. He started thinking about legacy plays, and one of them was to really tighten the alliance between Renault and Japan. And unbeknownst to him, there was a contingent of senior Nissan executives that were really felt threatened by that move. They really thought that they would lose complete control of the car company, and even in the government there was probably a little bit of anxiety about a national champion in the auto industry falling under full-blown foreign control.
Carlos Ghosn was an auto industry leader, respected by many in Japan. Now he's in jail.
The arrest of Carlos Ghosn came completely out of the blue. This was in November of 2018. He was coming to Japan on Nissan's corporate jet for a regular executive meeting, and he was met on the tarmac by Japanese authorities who whisked him away to a jail and charged him with financial misconduct crimes.
So what happened was that a power struggle ensued inside the company, and somewhere along the way it was criminalized. By that I mean that there were allegations leveled at Carlos Ghosn about the way he reported his pay to Japanese authorities, the way he handled money inside the company, that in other contexts might have been a board action, might have been handled internally. A number of executives at Nissan decided to take this difference and take it over to the Tokyo prosecutor's office, and that unleashed a chain of events that would shake the entire auto industry.
So after Carlos Ghosn was arrested, Nissan launched an internal investigation into the events that led up to his arrest.
So Rav Passi was tasked with investigating Carlos Ghosn. And he was told, get to the heart of the matter, find out what Carlos Ghosn did wrong and bring it to our shareholders.
It's really complicated because you had various things coming out of the weeds. 2018, the investigation has started, and we become aware of matters in terms of conflicts, actions by certain individuals that cause some concern because things might not quite be what they seem.
So in our story, we really took a close look at Harinada and his role in Carlos Ghosn's downfall.
Harinada is one of the most fascinating figures inside Nissan. He's also a lawyer. He's originally Malaysian.
Hello, Mr. Hadi.
And he had a meteoric rise through the company and became very, very close to Carlos Ghosn and other top figures. He had a front row seat at all the major strategic deliberations at the company. And when he discovered that Carlos Ghosn, as his final legacy play, was going to tighten the relationship between Renault and Nissan, he made a decision to go against Carlos Ghosn. And he became one of the key figures that decided that Carlos Ghosn had to go.
Harinada was somebody who actually recruited me into the company, so I have a long-standing relationship with him, or did have a long-standing relationship with him. For many, many years, he was a mentor. I had doubts about the credibility of the process right at the start. Harinada had a plea deal with the Tokyo prosecutors. Now, that suggests he was intrinsically involved in some of the wrongdoing, or the allegations of wrongdoing, and it just didn't smell right, just doesn't sit right.
So there was a basic conflict of interest. In other words, Harinada had to deliver results to Japanese prosecutors to avoid his own criminal liability, and he's accusing and leading the investigation of Carlos Ghosn.
Some of the people who had been involved in the original alleged crimes were also looking into the affairs themselves. Ravinder Passi began pointing out some of these conflict of interest issues. And the reason for that is essentially his concern was for the company. If the company's own investigation into itself was compromised, that could lead to a very weak position in various lawsuits that it was dealing with across the world.
I had discussions with Harry, discussions with the statutory auditors about these conflicts, discussions with HR about some of these conflicts, because at that point we reported into him. You know, at the time everything was quite, as you can imagine, it was, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to move fast. But when you step back and look at some of these things, you just think, my God, what was going on here? Because members of my team were being placed in immediate danger. Your chairman's been arrested, a representative director's been arrested. They both happen to be foreigners. And then now what we need to do, we're being instructed to do, is certain compliance professionals need to go into properties in Brazil, for example, and retrieve evidence. They've got to do it very carefully, because if they don't do it carefully, they're going to get convicted of criminal activities. And likewise, when a team of lawyers were commissioned to go to Lebanon. I mean, one of my immediate concerns was, why are lawyers from Nissan being sent to go to Lebanon to retrieve evidence? These are just lawyers, they're corporate lawyers from Nissan. You had revelations that a number of executives had benefited from share appreciation rights when they shouldn't have. I mean, you know, substantive amounts of money being taken by these guys when they weren't entitled to take them. And you do think, yes, how is this going to look later on? It's going to look quite concerning. So that triggered for me the sort of assessment that, well, I'm going to have to do something, because up until this point, I haven't put down on paper these conflicts and these issues.
So Rav Passi makes a fateful move. He writes this letter to the board listing every suspicion he has in great detail, backed up by evidence, backed up by memos, of why this internal investigation had serious problems. He sends the letter to the board and it's crickets. He doesn't hear much of anything.
Nothing happened thereafter. Nothing at all. Just like it just gone into a black box.
And he began to suspect that there was a desire, even at the highest level within Nissan, to kind of sweep these conflicts of interest under the rug.
Unfortunately for me, I think, you know, again, with hindsight, people must have thought that this is the nail that's sticking out and we can't have this. Within 3 days of me submitting that to the board of directors, that letter to the independent board of directors, I was removed from the Ghosn Executive Conduct Matters. I was then told that I could not attend board meetings anymore. And up until that point, I had attended every single board meeting. I was then also told that after 8 years of being in Japan, I'd be going back to the UK. It eventually transpired that I'd be the VP of Projects and Transformation, managing a team of 3. So you can imagine what this feels like at this stage. Almost an arbitrary removal from Japan, where I've lived for 8 years, had 3 children there, my family has grown up and we've been settled there, having a few months earlier been promoted to vice president at a global level, to being almost demoted.
So Passi was essentially being reassigned to get him as far away from the internal investigation as possible, and also to a certain extent in retaliation to some of the issues that he brought up regarding the internal investigation and Harinada.
What happened to Rav Passi can be seen as a series of corporate humiliations. I mean, first of all, his immediate responsibilities were taken away from him. Eventually, he lost, the coveted general counsel title. But it didn't stop there. Toward the end of his stay in Japan, Rav and his wife were convinced that they were being followed.
During that period, I'd noticed that whilst driving my car, I'd have other cars following me. First time I noticed this was around mid-March, and I was driving, I can't remember where I was going, but this grey van, small van, just literally started following me. And I noticed that there was somebody in the car taking pictures. And lo and behold, we were absolutely being followed either by people on foot or other individuals, 2 or 3, normally 2 burly men in a car, different cars at different times, following us around. They were following the family as well. And, given I'd seen the Nissan security department behave in a very, very egregious manner with others in terms of following and surveilling, I was very concerned as to what they were doing and who they were giving this information to. Because if they're giving this information to the authorities, you do think, why? What's going on here? I mean, this is just not normal behavior.
And this all culminated in a rather dramatic event in the middle of 2020.
Who are you people?
Where Nissan had hired a legal team and had obtained an unusual court order from the district court in Yokohama
to basically do a search of his home and seizure of his corporate laptop and phone and other documents.
If you don't let us in now, we have to break this key.
So it's a pretty extreme way to treat someone who had spent 16 years at the company.
There's no one else at the door.
These people have all come in. We don't really know who they are, apart from the fact that I've been shown a badge that says the Yokohama court. And they're here to recover a laptop and a mobile phone. It was even more weird because I'd highlighted to the directors that certain Nissan executives were trying to recover this laptop and this phone whilst I was still in Japan. And I was very concerned because it had evidence on there that related to misconduct matters and other forms of inappropriate conduct. It was just another form of intimidation, another form of harassment, forcing me almost to leave the company and the country. Because once they'd retained and obtained these items, we were still followed. Which, again, I just couldn't understand. What is the point of doing that? This is a car company. This is not the KGB.
I think it's fair to say that Rav Passi didn't have full battlefield awareness of all the intrigue going on at Nissan. I mean, Harinata is interesting because he's both charismatic and charming, and one of the most brutal corporate infighters one could ever run across.
This is a confidential company email, right? You should not have this.
If he had fallen into line, he would probably still have his job at Nissan, be paid very well, and continued his work.
A career that he spent 16 years building at Nissan is irretrievably broken. It's been smashed to smithereens. He and his family paid a huge price, certainly. But in terms of being able to sleep at night, I think he's come out ahead.
I highlighted issues to the highest levels of the company so that they could be dealt with appropriately by those in charge. There was no response to those, and there was retaliation against me. What's really profound, like absolutely profound, is that none of your colleagues, I mean people who you have known for years, forget it.
Yeah.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
And you got to be ready for that. You've got to be ready for that. If you take it on anyway.